A cult gathered around a glowing red crystal placed at the center of an altar, a crowd of hooded figures chanting in praise. Without warning, a demon was sliced clean in half, and chaos erupted as a wild swordsman hurled attacks in every direction. That reckless fury belonged to Ray Chang, the famed swordmaster, shouting for the soldiers to stay behind him as he cleared a path. An old man soon arrived, riding on the back of a massive T-Rex while casting spells. It was Jorb Vilmer, the necromancer, and then appeared the one everyone awaited, Maria Jagger, the blonde priestess. Raising her sword, she declared they needed to stop the summoning ritual. Someone muttered that it was already too late. The crystal's glow intensified, cracks spreading across its surface before it split apart. A system window materialized, announcing that the tower's rank had changed to hard mode. A violent explosion followed, and something monstrous crawled free from the shattered crystal. Another system alert appeared. The tower objective had been updated. Everyone froze, staring at the newly emerged boss of Season 5, the Plague Elder, who, to some, resembled a cheap green character. In an instant, the creature unleashed a flurry of slashes, sending soldiers flying. Tentacles whipped across the front line, crushing everything in reach. They were dead before anyone realized it. Maria struggled desperately to resist the creature's assault, sweat pouring down her face. Ray, trembling, whispered that he didn't want to die and bolted. A nearby soldier tried calling out to him, but the swordmaster was already sprinting like a bullet train. From the battlefield, the Plague Elder raised his blade, questioning where the foolish human thought he was going before swinging and destroying everything ahead. Ray would have been obliterated if not for the sudden appearance of a lone figure blocking the Elder's strike. Shocked murmurs rippled through background soldiers as they realized who had just saved them, the hero king himself. For a moment, it seemed Ray had been the story's protagonist, but it became painfully clear he was merely a coward who fled and almost died to a single attack. The true protagonist, the Golden Hero King, stood with a stern, resolute expression. Without hesitation, he charged toward the boss. The Plague Elder retaliated with a barrage of slashes, but the hero deflected every blow with flawless precision, reminiscent of Sung Jinwoo himself. As the two prepared to clash, the Plague Elder offered a faint grin. A massive explosion tore through the arena, forcing everyone, even Maria, to shield themselves. Amid their exchange of blows, the Plague Elder mocked him for daring to fight alone, calling him the hope of humanity who would drown in plagues. With a smug grin, the Elder declared he would die there, abandoned by all. But the Hero King didn't care about the Elder's threats. Instead, he worried more about suppressing his true power. Wearing a confident smile, he said, "Let's finish this." The boss grew confused, unable to understand what was happening. A bolt of lightning crashed from the sky, obliterating the cheap plankton. Shockwaves rippled outward, and everyone shielded their eyes. George stood frozen, dumbfounded by the sight. Soldiers erupted into cheers of victory while the protagonist stood tall, radiating sheer dominance. The system confirmed the Plague Elder had been slain. All top-100 players would receive rare rank equipment tickets. The top 10 would earn heroic rank tickets. The Hero King, naturally, received a mythic rank reward, Black Death, along with the title Elder Slayer for dealing the finishing blow. Only then did he collapse to the ground, deep in thought, relieved that the world had been granted one more year. The scene shifted to an interview where he was introduced as rank 1 among heroes for 4 consecutive years, the hero of heroes, the king. He endured the constant flashing of cameras with a blank, emotionless expression. Even children clutched plushies modeled after him, while merchants sold shirts bearing his likeness. During the interview, someone asked if he had anything to say to the assembled heroes. Maria immediately clung to his arm, begging him to behave, reminding him that this was a live broadcast and he absolutely must not embarrass them. With heroes gathered from all around the world and Maria sweating more than she did at the gym, the setting was revealed as the UN in Geneva, Switzerland. Smiling, the protagonist took the microphone and said something that would surely get the broadcast demonetized if repeated. He casually added that he did everything only for money. The room fell silent. Maria nearly fainted from shock. Slamming his hand on the table, he complained that he'd been tired of doing everything alone for far too long. What followed was a flashback to the beginning, when the world transformed into a game and towers appeared in the sky. Days later, monsters began emerging, threatening humanity's extinction. A massive goblin swung a blade, ending the lives of countless victims. A beautiful woman lay dying, another moments from death, until a lone fighter sliced off the goblin's arm. These were the players, those who hunted monsters and protected the helpless. The New World laws appeared, explaining that monsters exiting towers could be stopped if towers were cleared within their time limit, a typical cliché. Players with powers became humanity's heroes. The flashback dissolved, returning to the protagonist's declaration that he was exhausted and motivated only by money. Meanwhile, his own merch salesman shamelessly promoted shirts and posters. The protagonist browsed the PF, the player forum, typing messages while wondering how people always figured out it was him. Some begged to join his party, others speculated about his identity, and one reporter bragged he'd visit the protagonist's house once the new season began. Looking outside, the protagonist saw reporters swarming his home, which he despised. He stepped out with a casual, unfazed stride, hands in pockets. Reporters swarmed him, asking how he would face the new season and what he meant when he said he was tired. With a smirk, he asked whether they knew what celebrities say on TV after getting drunk and causing trouble. He smiled slyly, promising to make up for it with good work. Reporters exchanged confused looks, unsure what he meant, and honestly, it wasn't clear to anyone. The ground suddenly shook. A tremor struck. System windows appeared announcing the start of Season 6 and urging players to review information before entering the towers. The cute little interface reminded them to be careful when descending. New towers emerged across the sky and the system repeated its warning: conquer the towers to protect the world. The reporters froze, staring upward in terror. The protagonist simply pulled up his hood and walked away, leaving behind a pile of flyers promoting his merch, a true digital marketing king. A new system alert notified that someone had reached their destination. He arrived at a quiet area, noting that the first day of the season was always empty. Suddenly, elders appeared laughing and offering blessings. The horned bald one was the Elder of Steel, and the blue-haired elf woman was the Elder of Ice. He scratched his cheek while receiving their blessings without much enthusiasm. Transcendent beings watched over players, rewarding mischief with overpowered blessings. His UN interview stunt had delighted the elders. That same day, the Elder of Gold laughed wildly and granted him the blessing of the legendary gacha, guaranteeing a legendary reward within 3 draws. He grinned and commanded the system to open all unclaimed rewards at once. A golden glow surrounded him like a CS case-opening animation. Because he was the protagonist, he naturally obtained a ridiculously broken legendary cloak loaded with absurd stats, including 999 evasion, plus the overpowered surf shield skill. Smiling to himself, he admired the legendary armor, legendary skill, and legendary artifact. Hands in pockets, he struck a confident pose and ordered, "Enter the tower." He teleported instantly. Another system message appeared. The Elder of Gold had replaced the legendary gacha blessing with the blessing of shirt sales. Anyone would want an elder like that. Inside the tower, a giant green foot slammed down as an orc bellowed, "Kill the human." He found himself in the Moonblood Orc Tribe Tower, Tier 3. Smirking, he decided it was time to test his new skills. Create Ice Blade. An icy sword formed in his hand. Thanking the Ice Elder, he charged and unleashed a devastating slash. Orcs froze mid-attack. With swift, icy strikes, he cut through everything, leveling up with each kill. The system announced, "First floor cleared." He remarked it was a good start, maybe he'd save the world again. But on reaching the second floor, he wore the expression of someone dragged out of bed on a Monday morning. Below him, orcs were drinking, partying, and shouting. When they noticed him, they yelled to kill the hero and vowed to fight to their last breath. But he calmly leapt into the air, declaring he would send them all to heaven. The scene jumped ahead to footsteps echoing on a staircase, the protagonist already ascending to the 4th level. He admitted he enjoyed gaining experience but complained that the climb was exhausting without a rest floor. Ahead, a formation of elite orcs blocked the path to the boss, standing in a formation so predictable that he couldn't help thinking how painfully obvious the setup was. A system window appeared, declaring, "Fight for your life with honor." Another followed, announcing that the Elder of Iron had blessed the elite orcs. Their leader shouted in praise of the Elder, and the entire group roared, "Valhalla awaits us." They even began singing some kind of battle hymn as they charged toward him. He twirled his blade, mentally preparing himself. One orc rushed low while another leaped from above. He dodged and countered, but the attack dealt no damage, a confirmation that these were elite orcs with boosted defenses. They kept swinging, but he evaded every blow with perfect movement. Realizing he needed something stronger, he remembered a certain artifact. He opened his inventory and stared at it, hesitating. He wasn't entirely confident he could handle what it unleashed. The orcs grew impatient, shouting at him to come down and fight. One hurled a massive axe. That was enough hesitation. He equipped the artifact. The system announced, "You have equipped the Frozen Heart. You have gained the effects of glacial synergy." Holding his ice blade, he muttered the old saying, "The rich get richer and the strong get stronger." An orc lunged, swinging a massive axe, but it was instantly blocked. His left arm had transformed into a shield of ice. With a swift slash, he cut the goblin clean in half, the creature frozen solid on the ground before shattering. Two more orcs attacked from behind, but he blocked both effortlessly, gripping their weapons and freezing them to pieces. Their expressions shifted from rage to pure confusion. He launched another strike, cutting down two more. Another orc tried to crush him from above but ended up sliced midair, splattering against the ceiling. As he continued mowing them down, his levels surged upward at breakneck speed. Now clad in full Sun Jinwoo energy, he dual-wielded daggers. One orc's face twisted into an "oh no, we're screwed" expression, a sentiment he wholeheartedly understood. Then came the massacre, slashes, cross-slashes, icy shreds. The elite orcs couldn't even comprehend what was happening before they were already dead. Standing amid the carnage like a complete Chad, he announced another floor cleared. Grinning, he added that he'd forgotten one. Turning around, he hurled a massive ice orb directly into an orc's face, sending him crashing lifeless to the ground. A flood of system messages appeared. Elite floor cleared. 1,000 achievement points gained. Random skills received. He stepped on the last fallen orc's back and commanded, "Open skill box." A blue flash burst out. The result, a common skill. Groaning in disappointment, he muttered that he expected at least a legendary. The skill was Aim Thrust, which transformed physical strikes into piercing attacks. With a shrug, he equipped it anyway, better than nothing. He stepped through a gate and arrived at what appeared to be the tower's central hub. A voice greeted him, complimenting him for still being alive. He replied that the compliment sounded almost disappointing. The little elf girl responded that it wasn't disappointing at all, she simply needed him alive so she could keep selling items. This was Automata, the shopkeeper created by the Elder of Machines. She checked his total points and informed him he had 16,000 to spend, urging him to use them before he died. She showed him a wide selection of card packs, encouraging him to try for a legendary. But knowing the pain of opening CS cases, he resisted the temptation. He only purchased a speed potion and a fire potion for 300 points. While he walked away, Automata shouted after him to buy the card packs, but he covered his ears, pretending not to hear her. A new system window appeared. Boss floor entered. He faced the boss, who declared that the fight would begin. The creature instantly appeared before him, launching a strike. The protagonist blocked with a magic barrier, which shattered immediately. Shocked, he retreated, noting the boss's enormous size and how small the other orcs seemed in comparison. He quickly grabbed the fire potion and hurled it into the boss's face, igniting the battlefield. For a moment, it looked as though they'd be having grilled orc tonight, but the boss roared and extinguished all fire magic at once. The protagonist had already repositioned behind him, thrusting into the back of his neck. A vertical slash followed, cleaving straight through the boss's chest. Smiling, he admitted it wasn't a bad fight. Then viscous green slime dripped from above. The boss growled, declaring the battle far from over. With another roar, he entered berserk mode. The protagonist smirked, saying he loved a good challenge. The boss unleashed his full power and the protagonist activated his shield. In a sarcastic tone, he remarked that if that shockwave had hit him, he'd be dead. Another double strike shattered the shield entirely. He jumped back and began a countdown, dodging attacks with precision. 113, 59, 3, 2. Another strike came and he rolled aside. At one, he picked up the fire potion bottle from the ground and let it fly. Ding. The hit landed perfectly, almost like a magazine cover pose. With the berserk mode expired, the boss collapsed, a crater in his chest. System messages flooded in again. Orc tower cleared, rewards incoming. Among the many rewards, the most important was the Aspect skill card pack with a chance at a legendary skill. He ordered it to open. Boom, another common skill. He stared blankly, unimpressed, having received Ice Projectile. Checking the details, he complained that the game sucked and walked away. The next chapter opened inside the ominously named Tower of the Dark Sadness. Little demons rushed toward the protagonist while he stood perfectly still, charging a new skill. He unleashed it in a sweeping wave, cutting them down in an instant. Spreading his arms, he admitted he loved leveling up his skills. A notification announced the next wave. A swarm of purple demons appeared, ready to overwhelm him. Kang grinned, promising to give them exactly what they were asking for after 1 second. A brilliant blue flash carved through the entire horde. His skill leveled up again. Then someone called him a filthy heretic. A new figure emerged, the devil bishop, the tower boss, resembling a horned monkey. Pointing dramatically, the bishop screamed to attack and kill the protagonist. But before the demons could even move, they were already slashed and sent flying across the room. The bishop spun around, completely bewildered. The protagonist didn't wait, he sliced the bishop as well. When the creature finally realized what had happened, it was already frozen solid like an oversized popsicle. Walking toward his immobilized foe, the protagonist decided this was the perfect chance to test multiple skills, specifically how many ice weapons he could create at once. He conjured several spears, launching them one after another until the bishop resembled a block of Swiss cheese full of holes. But he still had one more spear remaining. He hurled it with full force, vaporizing the bishop completely. More system notifications appeared. He received a random equipment choice and told the system to open it. He got a common armor, which he immediately dismissed, saying he didn't need it since he already had a legendary piece. He rubbed his chin, noting he didn't feel much of a difference when using 8 ice blades at once. Suddenly, a new message appeared: confront your shadow. He turned around, seeing a massive event window. Within the tower realms, different factions existed, each led by elders. These factions competed for influence, trying to recruit powerful players. Completing missions for them granted higher rewards. Apparently, the protagonist had already accepted the quest because the next scene placed him directly inside a meeting of the Shadow Council. Members greeted him, remarking that they remembered him. One asked if he would face his shadow and learn their deepest secrets again. The protagonist hesitated, admitting that while the Shadow Council was powerful, many other factions despised them. Walmart Crow assured him they'd protect him with their cloak, questioning whether he'd forgotten their capabilities. He replied that he hadn't, and that was precisely why he was unsure. They asked what he desired. That was the moment he had been waiting for. With a shameless grin, he extended his hand and demanded the Beast of Shadows, and while he was at it, a rare dark skill card as well. The Shadow Crows fell silent, stunned. One hissed that he shouldn't overestimate himself, calling mortals worthless. Kang immediately turned to leave, saying it was nice meeting them and he hoped they'd never meet again. But someone in the back shouted for him to wait. A shadowy cat appeared, leaping toward him. Despite being a creature of darkness, it looked undeniably adorable. A system message announced, "You have received the Beast of Shadows." A special achievement followed, hidden adoption. The cat sat proudly at his feet as he also received 100,000 achievement points, an absurd amount, blatantly breaking all balance. Kang was all smiles, petting the cat when the rare skill Shadow Blade arrived as well. The Crow Elder, looking defeated, quietly asked if that was all. With a smug grin, the protagonist confirmed that it was and agreed to join the Shadow Council. The scene cut to him stretching, saying the season was off to a great start. He considered taking some time to rest, but before he could relax, 2 men called his name from behind. He turned around, annoyed, muttering that it was starting again. A flock of reporters rushed him, asking how he managed to clear 2 Tier 3 towers in one day and begging him to reveal his secrets. With his eyes half closed under the barrage of camera flashes, he casually claimed he was simply good, acknowledging how impressive it all was. One reporter mentioned rumors that the Chinese swordmaster had cleared a Tier 4 tower. The season was becoming competitive. Kang raised an eyebrow, surprised. Tier 4, he asked how many people were with him. The reporter explained that the swordmaster was accompanied by 5 veterans from the Chinese guild, though 4 had died in battle. Crossing his arms, the protagonist commented that the swordmaster must be extremely talented in the art of using human shields. Reporters gasped, asking if he was implying the swordmaster used others intentionally. Before they could press further, breaking news arrived. The swordmaster had entered a Tier 5 tower. Kang asked how many victims this time, but the answer was surprising. He went alone. Kang mused aloud that someone was full of energy and excitement on day 1. He wondered why anyone would rush into towers so early in the season. The sage was busy gathering skills and the necromancer was occupied with his own matters. The only explanation was that the swordmaster must have acquired exceptional loot from the Tier 4 tower. The reporters continued hounding him, asking what he thought of the swordmaster. Scratching his ear with a cynical expression, he declared, "The swordmaster is a total idiot." Reporters stared in shock, asking if he planned to compete with the idiot master. Raising his hand, he replied that if they didn't know him by now, he'd clarify. He was an idiot too, but the kind of idiot who wins. The reporters begged him to reconsider, but he changed the topic. He asked who could take him to the level 5 tower. The scene cut to him stepping into a golden teleportation circle. Immediately, system windows popped up announcing that a betting game among the elders had begun, hosted by the Elder of Jesters. The Monarch of Frost placed a bet in his favor, advising him not to disappoint. When he arrived, the Tower of War awaited, a huge historical battlefield defense scenario where players couldn't be on the same side. The mission objective was simple: emerge victorious. The protagonist had already predicted the swordmaster would be there, and this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. The moment he confirmed it, he entered the tower. A system message appeared immediately. The ruthless Cavalith Empire had launched a war of conquest and reached the fortress of the Kingdom of Rhodia. The outcome of this historic battle now rested in his hands. Kang was forced to choose between conquest and defense. He hesitated, unsure which side to join, until he noticed the swordmaster had already chosen the Cavalith Empire. Without a second thought, Kang selected the Kingdom of Rhodia. Taking the weaker side meant the rewards would be much greater. In an instant, he was transported into a meeting room filled with Rhodian officers. They erupted in cheers the moment he appeared, celebrating the arrival of their player. A blonde soldier thanked God, others hugged each other with joy. Looking around at the frantic preparations for war, Kang pulled out a chair and asked who held command. Silence fell. Heavy Boots stepped forward, revealing Muta Duchamp, the fortress's defense commander. The chubby man rambled proudly about being part of the royal family, but Kang cut him off by asking whether he truly wanted to win the battle. The man nodded confidently, claiming their forces were lacking in strength but unmatched in spirit. Kang didn't let him finish. He punched the commander hard in the stomach, sending him rolling across the room like a dropped bowling ball. Standing over the trembling soldiers, Kang announced he was now in command. He ordered them to brief him on both their troops and the Empire's forces. Soon he stood overlooking the kingdom, contemplating their situation. 5,000 soldiers and about 900 archers, an army insignificant against the Empire's massive numbers. Fortunately, this world had no mages or magic. More importantly, the swordmaster's skills weren't suited for large-scale battles. As the apostle of the Elder of Steel, he could only fully utilize powers tied to that monarch. Players normally contracted with only one elder, receiving rewards exclusively from that ruler. Kang, however, was a special case. Thanks to the Monarch of Jesters, he could receive blessings from several monarchs at once, a privilege no one else possessed. Although monarchs could contract many players, only one could become an apostle, and apostles received immense support along with significant restrictions. The swordmaster, for example, couldn't unleash any skill outside of steel-related powers. Kang felt confident the battle could be won, but the soldiers around him trembled with fear. No one truly knew whether the kingdoms inside the towers were real or merely imagined constructs. Whether these beings had consciousness or existed only for the towers hardly mattered anymore. What mattered was raising morale. Birds flew overhead as shouts echoed through the fortress. News spread quickly. The player had come to save the kingdom. Word also spread that Duke Duchamp had been dismissed, replaced by the player himself. Soldiers celebrated loudly, relieved that the incompetent commander had been removed. Kang smirked. Simply firing Muta had already boosted morale immensely. Suddenly, a thunderous noise shook the walls. A soldier reported that enemy troops had begun their assault. Archers rained arrows down from the battlements, one arrow piercing an enemy soldier's mouth as he tried to climb the wall. Another shouted that enemies were trapped at the gates. Crushing them there would shatter their morale entirely. Kang grinned and summoned the Beast of Shadows. He'd expected a cat, but it emerged as a colossal, monstrous T-Rex cloaked in darkness. Gripping his sword, he told his kitty to show its power. Enemy soldiers panicked, asking what the creature was, insisting they felt an overwhelming darkness behind the walls. Their commander shouted for them to hold formation, but a scream cut him off. Blood sprayed into the air as blades tore through lines of soldiers. Panic erupted. Someone shouted it was a monster and urged retreat to the inner wall. But Kang had already arrived among them, freezing troops with his ice powers as he fed them to the beast, remarking calmly that his kitty was hungry. "Enjoy your snack, Chomp," he said. And the beast of shadows tore through the forces without mercy. Arrows soon rained over the enemy army as Kang unleashed icy slashes across the battlefield. In the middle of the carnage, he paused. Something was wrong. Where was the Swordmaster? The realization struck him, a double-edged problem. His aggressive fighting boosted the kingdom's morale, but it also made him fully visible to the enemy player. A soldier shouted that the enemy player was on the front lines. Kang understood the rules clearly. Players couldn't kill each other inside the tower. Defeat simply meant expulsion and a failed attempt, but the tower itself could kill them. He wasn't planning to die here. But he also refused to accept defeat. With a hardened expression, he declared that this was how it would be. He released a storm of blades, cutting down enemy soldiers. Frustrated, he wondered if the Swordmaster planned to let everyone else die first. Just then, something strange happened. Swords lying on the battlefield began lifting into the air. An allied soldier cried out that the blades were moving on their own. Every sword shot straight toward Kang. Analyzing the situation, he realized the Swordmaster was using a sword telekinesis technique. He wondered how the man obtained such a heroic skill, luck, or perhaps granted by the Monarch of Steel. Kang leapt into the air, weaving through the flying weapons, acknowledging the Swordmaster had prepared well. But Kang wasn't idle either. Landing and channeling shadow energy, he shattered an entire wave of incoming blades. Mocking the Swordmaster, he announced that his own shadow blade skill was now perfected. Enemy soldiers shouted that their player was there, fighting for the Cavalith Empire. Kang realized the Swordmaster wasn't there for the Empire's victory, he was there for Kang alone. The troops, encouraged by their apostle's presence, shouted that the battle was turning in their favor. Smirking, Kang drew his ice sword, telling them they'd need much more to bring him down. He plunged the blade into the ground. The Swordmaster summoned even more blades, but Kang knew the more weapons summoned, the weaker they became. He prepared to counter the attack, insisting it wouldn't work. A shield materialized, though someone else attempted to defend against the blast. The shield shattered, leaving the opponent sprawled across the ground, looking ironically like a total Chad. Kang mocked him, asking whether he thought such power could defeat him, and pointed out that he hadn't even considered attacking the fortress with his telekinesis. The Swordmaster, annoyed, retorted by asking whether Kang even understood the victory conditions. Even if the fortress and troops were destroyed, the Empire only won by defeating the player, Kang himself. Kang asked whether the Swordmaster planned to defeat him. The Swordmaster declared that a hero's duty was to protect the world and that someone like Kang would never understand that. Furious, he shouted that Kang didn't deserve to be called the Hero King. Kang fired back, asking whether the Swordmaster's guild members were part of the world he claimed to protect. Enraged, the Swordmaster charged at Kang, yelling he wouldn't let him die peacefully. Kang smiled, assuring him he wouldn't die before the Swordmaster. He raised an ice shield, blocking the attack and countering. The Swordmaster insisted such tricks were useless until he sensed a presence behind him. He spun around, blade raised. The monarchs were watching. Losing here could cost him dearly. But Kang grinned and told him he wasn't going to fight him, then leaped away in the opposite direction. Confused, the Swordmaster didn't understand where Kang was going, and then it hit him. Kang hadn't fought openly to raise troop morale. He had intentionally set the board. He sprinted directly toward the enemy command where troops were already panicking and falling back. The Swordmaster accelerated after him, shouting for him to stop. Inside the command tent, soldiers screamed about a monster attack as the commander demanded answers. Suddenly, Kang burst in. "Found you," he said coldly. "There's always more than one way to win a game." He raised his sword. The next chapter began with soldiers shouting as Kang swung horizontally, cutting the commander clean in half. The Swordmaster arrived moments later, screaming in fury. Kang mocked him, saying he should have kept his commander hidden. All Kang needed was to halt the Empire's advance, and killing the commander accomplished exactly that. The Swordmaster, enraged, launched himself at Kang, but his sword suddenly vanished. A system message appeared. The tower had been cleared. Kang now had the right to choose one of the Swordmaster's abilities. 3 options appeared. Furious, the Swordmaster shouted that he would kill Kang with his own hands. Kang teased him while selecting the sword telekinesis skill, telling him that if he wanted him to take it, he wouldn't refuse. The system confirmed sword telekinesis had been stolen and Kang gained metal synergy. The swordmaster screamed that it wasn't over. Kang thanked him and said he looked forward to the next skill. The scene shifted. A dreamlike vision unfolded. A mask fell to the ground. The system spoke of a boy of many faces and many talents while Kang listened seriously. It asked whether he wished to become a hero. He picked up the mask, remarking he always dreamed this at the same time each year, and his decision never changed. A creepy clown appeared laughing. It told him he should become the hero of heroes, but that no one would ever accept him. He would forever be a meme. With a twisted grin, the clown declared Kang a brilliant joke. Unsurprised, Kang put on the mask. The contract with the monarch of masks was completed. He woke to his phone ringing. Someone knocked on the door, saying they knew he was inside. Rubbing his face, Kang muttered he had that awful dream again and wondered why this guy was here so early. He opened the door cheerfully, asking what someone like him was doing there. The man complained Kang was acting arrogant just because he'd become a little famous. This was Hazak Park, a rank -30 player contracted to the assassin monarch, the hitman, and a department chief at the National Intelligence Agency, which operated directly under the Blue House. Kang asked if Park was still doing the same things in the game. Park replied he no longer had time, dealing instead with world leaders who used players for wars. Kang thanked him for his service. Park asked why he hadn't answered his phone. Kang claimed he was sleeping. Park tripped over the mess in Kang's apartment and stared in disbelief at how he lived. Kang groaned. He hated the title Hero King more than anything. Park mocked him for living like Shrek in his swamp, warning him that living off canned food would kill him. Kang insisted nothing was wrong with his food, he even had plenty left. Park lay on the bed and told him to cook 2 big cans. A flashback followed. Kang played an online game with intense concentration, just like a teenager grinding Fortnite in 2019. He cleared the game, shocking everyone around him. Park approached, asking if there was any game Kang wasn't good at, calling him a prodigy. Like a scout discovering a new esports star, Park immediately asked if he wanted to go pro. Kang said gaming was just a hobby. Soon Park was convincing Kang's parents to let him drop out and pursue gaming professionally. Park stayed late helping him train. But on the very day Kang was supposed to go pro, Season 1 began, the tower breaks appeared, and everything changed. Kang collapsed to the ground as a massive creature lunged at him. Park arrived just in time, stabbing the creature. Kang screamed for his mom, crying on his knees. That was the day he lost his parents and the day he met his hero. Back in the present, Kang asked why Park had come. Park answered that he was there representing the association. At 4:55 am, inside the Player Graduation Academy, students were training against a combat simulation. One of them spotted the Hero King watching and muttered that he'd heard Kang would personally test them, hoping he wouldn't have to defeat him in order to graduate. Another student laughed, insisting it wouldn't happen, they were practically guaranteed to pass. With a scoff, he added that Kang was just another player and had no right to reschedule their exam to 5 am on the first day of the season. Kang watched quietly from outside until a staff member approached, asking what he thought. The academy had restructured training to be more efficient and systematic. Kang's first question was whether these students had been getting boosts from day one, veterans helping them clear towers so they could collect rewards early. The staff member forced a nervous smile, insisting it was an honor to have Mr. Kang evaluate their finest members. Kang stepped forward, already changing into combat gear and drawing his sword. He reminded them that his conditions hadn't changed. He would evaluate their real skills and their graduation depended entirely on him. The students stiffened. The exam began. President Sono agreed to the terms, though he found Kang unbearably arrogant. Yet he remained confident that the students were ready, especially with the new season underway. He believed they might even put up a decent fight. That confidence disappeared immediately. One by one, the students fell before Kang without mercy. He dismantled them effortlessly, failing every single one. "You failed," he said over and over. Then one girl collapsed onto the ground, devastated, certain she had failed. But instead, Kang told her she had passed. She stared up in disbelief, asking how. Kang explained she was simply lucky. She lasted longer than the other 12 players. He told her never to forget that luck meant everything for players. "That's it," he announced. "Turn off the cameras. Congratulations to the first graduate of the Player Academy." Still sitting on the floor, the girl whispered, "Cameras? What cameras?" At that moment, the president and several officials burst in, furious. They protested, claiming they had asked Kang to evaluate the students, not to fail all of them. Kang cut them off sharply. "Do I look stupid to you?" he demanded. He exposed the truth immediately. All the students were children of executives, boosted by hired ranked players so the association could mold them into obedient lapdogs. Kang smirked, saying he had little hope for the association if these were their future elites. The president snapped, shouting that Kang didn't understand how the real world worked. He insisted players were nothing more than weapons used by governments everywhere to protect their nations. Players didn't get to choose. What the world needed now were war heroes, and Kang had an obligation to cooperate for the country's sake. His voice cracked into desperation, but Kang knew better. They only wanted to use players as tools of war. Since they kept calling him arrogant, he decided it was time to teach them exactly what that word meant. Before the president could continue, a staff member burst in with a tablet, saying there was a problem. The president looked at the screen, his face drained of color. Kang smiled. "It looks like the academy's going to shut down," he remarked. The president demanded to know how footage of the students had been leaked. Kang reminded him that he had support from the intelligence department, and the comments on the leaked video were overwhelmingly negative. No one with a functioning brain would ever enroll in the academy again. The president trembled, shocked, speechless. Kang simply replied that he did what was necessary. A system window appeared, provocation level increased. The monarch of masks is impressed. A gift box was awarded. Kang exited the academy and met Mr. Park outside. Park thanked him but asked whether leaking that video put the intelligence agency at risk. Wouldn't there be punishment? Park explained that the government was already fed up with the association. This wasn't their first clash. Relieved, Kang asked for a ride to the next tower. Park asked which one, and Kang answered, the level 5 tower. They arrived shortly after, and the system immediately provided mission details: escort a caravan and ensure the cargo reached its destination safely. Kang waved goodbye to Park and entered the realm. Now in the Oasis Desert, a group of warriors struggled desperately against monstrous creatures. They were moments from being wiped out when Kang arrived, saving them. In the realm of towers, players always appeared at critical moments, right when they were needed most. It was how mythologies formed around them. Kang unleashed a barrage of blades that annihilated the monsters instantly. Trying to appear cool, he approached the warriors and said, "Guess who's here?" They stared blankly at him. He added that he was a visiting player and they could call on him anytime. The warriors cheered, praising the God of Light for sending him. Kang felt a chill. God of Light, that's a bad sign, he thought. He asked whether more threats existed in the desert. One warrior explained they were in the Divine Kingdom's territory, and heretics weren't a major concern here. Their destination was only 3 days away. Kang groaned, 3 days. He should have taken that break. A warrior asked if something was wrong, but seeing more monsters approaching, Kang told them not to worry. He instructed them to rest while he stood guard. They thanked him, calling him the Apostle of Light. He equipped the Vitality Necklace, boosting his regeneration significantly. A system reminder popped up. The gift box still hadn't been opened. He opened it and received an advanced growth stone. Finally, something useful. As more monsters approached, he put the stone away. He wouldn't need it for this fight. Later, he summoned his shadow beast Noah, telling him it was time to eat, but he quickly realized he couldn't let Noah do all the work. Drawing all his blades, he unleashed them simultaneously, cutting through waves of scorpion-like monsters. He marveled at how the weapons moved according to his will, an incredible skill. His sword telekinesis leveled up again. The ground trembled. A massive sand devourer emerged from the dunes. Kang smirked, having anticipated something like this. "Looks like there's no sleep tonight," he muttered. Before he could act, Noah launched himself at the creature, slamming it to the ground with telekinesis. Kang finished it off instantly. Several skills leveled up: telekinesis, ice blade, materialization. As the caravan continued through the desert, Kang asked the warriors if there were knights accompanying them. They confirmed there were, loyal servants of the God of Light. Kang asked where these knights had been last night. The warriors explained the knights prioritized protecting the cargo. Kang found it suspicious. Even in chaos, their priority was the cargo. He asked which order they belonged to. The soldiers replied, the Crimson Crossmates. Kang smiled. Whatever was inside that carriage must be incredibly valuable. The soldier stiffened. That's none of your concern. Focus on your divine purpose. Kang realized not only were powerful knights involved, but the kingdom had summoned him, the so-called Apostle of Light, for this mission. This was far more complicated than he expected. Without warning, Kang yanked a warrior close, shielding him with an ice barrier while shouting that they were under attack. Heretics on horseback fired arrows, somehow infiltrating sacred territory. They used swift hit-and-run tactics. Kang wondered how the knights would react. The knights shouted to protect the carriage at all costs, activating the aura shield. A merchant was struck by an arrow. Kang noticed the knights didn't care at all. Their eyes remained solely on the carriage. The system reminded him of his mission: ensure the cargo reaches its destination safely. After brief hesitation, Kang stepped forward, planted his sword into the ground, and summoned the shadows. He leapt toward an approaching rider, only to realize they weren't heretics at all. They were desert elves. In the next moment, he sensed an attack and raised a shield, but the arrow pierced it cleanly. These enemies could use aura too. An elf charged, screaming for him to die. Kang blocked and recalled that these people served a particular monarch. Pinning his sword at the elf's throat, he demanded to know what was inside the carriage. The elf gritted his teeth and called him a bastard, refusing to reveal anything. The elf screamed for his allies to fire at the protagonist, urging them not to worry about hitting him. Without hesitation, the extras unleashed a rain of arrows, but Kang remained unshaken. He activated his shield, blocking every single shot with ease. The elf trembled, drenched in sweat, still refusing to answer his questions. Kang pressed him calmly, insisting he only wanted to know what was in the carriage. But when the elf remained stubborn, Kang's voice turned cold as he warned that if things became difficult, he would have to deal with the elf's companions instead. The elf's expression collapsed as an ice shard pierced the eye of one of his comrades. Soon, all of them were subdued under Kang's overwhelming power. Standing tall, radiating absolute dominance, Kang asked again, "What are you transporting in that carriage?" Panicking, the elf blurted out the truth: the cargo was Princess Syria. Kang smiled. So the heretics kidnapped their own princess. He said he would spare them this time. The elf tried to protest, but Kang cut him off, advising them to retreat while they still had their heads so they could try killing him again later. The elves fled. Moments later, a Rhodian soldier ran to Kang asking why he had let them escape. Spreading his arms, Kang said he wanted to check something. The soldier chased after him as Kang approached a guarded door and told the trembling guard to move aside. The guard refused, insisting he had no orders to let anyone through. In true Sung Jinwoo fashion, Kang summoned his demonic cat and warned the guard to move while he was still being kind. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. Princess Syria was chained, furious, shouting that she would not be rescued by a heretic. The system chimed in, warning Kang not to lose sight of his mission. The Monarch of Light scolded him for his actions. Kang ignored everything. He pulled out a knife, spun it in his hand, and slashed through her restraints. A new system message appeared: secret mission unlocked, save the princess, 300,000 achievement points. Then more windows appeared rapidly. The tower had been updated. It was no longer level 5. It was now level 5, ultra hard. Kang smirked. The game was garbage, but at least it was creative. Suddenly, angels descended from the sky. The Monarch of Light declared that Kang would pay for defying the light. The angels, light watchers, arrived to execute judgment. Their sight extended anywhere light touched, and they tolerated no darkness. Soldiers cheered, believing salvation had arrived, and commanded the angels to eliminate anyone opposing the light, including Kang. Kang stared, horrified that they would turn on him so quickly just because reinforcements arrived. The princess, sweating nervously, asked what he would do. Kang smiled confidently and told her not to worry, he had reinforcements of his own. He began casting a dark spell. The system confirmed the Monarch of Shadows approved, granting him the Shadow mental buff. Panic spread through the soldiers as darkness swallowed their vision. A deep voice echoed, "Envelop the world in our cloak." Grinning, Kang declared this mode had far better rewards. The slaughter began instantly. Soldiers were carved apart, blood spraying across the battlefield, while the angels stood frozen, unable to comprehend what was happening. One angel screamed a holy command and released a blinding attack. Others repeated it, but nothing happened. A storm of darkness consumed them, disorienting them completely. A vertical slash cut one angel in half. The remaining ones trembled, confused by the overwhelming power they faced. Kang moved like a gymnast gone berserk, slicing through them. The system announced the Light Watchers had entered permanent hostile mode, but due to his alignment with shadows, Kang gained even more points and his darkness grew stronger. "That's one less," he muttered, stepping on a fallen angel. He heard a new sound. The system declared multiple factions had begun observing him. The narrative shifted to explain the layers of the tower realms. Knights and elves inside a tower belonged to the world inside the tower, but monarchs and their factions existed in the upper realm. Players acted as intermediaries between both realities. Reflections of factions appeared inside towers, but players were not puppets, they could make countless choices. By betraying the light, Kang was now rewarded generously by the shadows. Even monarchs were bound by the tower's rules. Back in the battle, Kang looked to the sky. 5 left. One angel descended wielding 2 enormous glowing orbs. The angel charged a massive spell, shouting its attack. Light rained down, attempting to purify the darkness. Kang didn't flinch. He reminded himself that no matter how badly they wanted him dead, this was still a level 5 tower. The strongest angel they could summon here was rank 9, a fixed rule. The angels screamed for the light to destroy darkness. Beams rained down onto the soldiers. One soldier stood helpless, shocked they were being bombarded by both sides. Kang laughed, saying the angels didn't care about their own followers. He activated Shadow Mantle and charged forward, telling them not to underestimate him. Light beams struck everywhere, and Princess Syria watched in terror until Kang scooped her into his arms, carrying her away from the incoming blasts. He placed her safely down and summoned his cat. Pulling out a pink crystal, he explained it would protect her. It was the Grove Stone. He shattered it and transferred the power to the Shadow Cat. The princess screamed as light rained down, but the cat grew gigantic, towering over the battlefield. It blocked the angels' attacks as darkness clashed with holy light. Kang thanked his pet for holding the line. One angel mocked him, saying a weak mortal couldn't win. Kang sprinted forward and clashed with them, blades flashing in a chaotic storm. As they fought, Kang muttered that the thorns wouldn't hold much longer. A sudden glint caught his attention. He barely blocked an incoming strike. Another attack followed, nearly catching him. He wondered how they moved so fast despite all the debuffs. Kang retreated, parrying blow after blow until one angel managed to wound him. Blood splattered. Skidding back, he cursed, saying their wings were too troublesome and he needed one decisive move to bring them down. He began summoning a powerful spell, but the angels were quick. A beam of light struck the center of the summoning circle. Kang sweat as a bolt hit him directly, but it wasn't lightning. It was an angel wielding a spear. His swords fell from his hands. "This is our moment," one angel shouted. "Cut him in half." But Kang smiled. Dozens of system notifications exploded into existence, waves of buffs flooding him. The spear embedded in his chest dissolved. The angels froze, suddenly realizing something was terribly wrong. A second later, a storm of swords tore through the sky. The massacre began. He activated a buff increasing fatal damage by 50%. Smirking, he said it was time to end it. The next chapter opened with angels being shredded from every direction. The last tried to escape before Kang conjured an enormous greatsword and hurled it through the air, impaling the angel into the ground. The battle was finished. He gained 3 levels. As he walked through the battlefield, something brushed against his foot, his beloved Shadow Cat stretching lazily. The princess approached, calling out to him, asking why he went so far to save her when he had even betrayed the light. Kang answered simply, because of the rewards. She pressed further, asking if he planned to ransom her. Petting his cat, he said he couldn't stand his own kind and apologized, saying she was asking strange questions. A few days later, they reached the border of the Ayab kingdom. The princess thanked him sincerely, smiling brightly. Kang only cared about the rewards. She confirmed he would receive them. She extended her hand, offering him a gift. He accepted, and the system announced he had conquered the tower of the deserted wasteland and received an accessory. He asked what it was. In an instant, he was teleported into a void. The system explained that it was an emblem of trust given by Princess Syria, purpose unknown, usefulness to be determined. The scene shifted. Kang sat on a train heading somewhere. 4 hours earlier, Mr. Park had instructed him to go to Busan. When Kang asked why, Park said nothing had happened yet, but something would. They reviewed intel on a player, Natasha Ivanova, an international criminal. A black hat player wanted in Russia. She had infiltrated Korea through Busan and cleared towers with 4 subordinates. Reports said she possessed the legendary skill Shadow Mantle. Arriving in Busan, Kang's phone rang. Mr. Park asked how the trip went and joked about zombies. Kang snapped, telling him to stop watching from afar and give him a ride. Park informed him that Ivanova's team was already inside the tower, level 5. Kang entered the tower. A grimace crossed his face. He knew level 5 towers were brutal. The system warned him, survive against the hungry infected. Out of nowhere, one of the ugliest zombies he'd ever seen appeared. Kang raised his sword, asking if that thing was really a zombie, but Noah, his cat, appeared, drooling. The zombie lunged, but a massive shadow whale appeared and obliterated it. Kang's eyes widened. Noah had grown stronger after absorbing the growth stone, but why a whale? A woman began clapping. Natasha Ivanova appeared, saying she'd been waiting for him. She praised the hero king for refusing to let a villain roam free. Kang pointed his blades at her, detailing her crimes and infiltration through Busan. She coyly asked if he planned to arrest her. Kang retorted that Russian intelligence must not think highly of him if they believed he would be captured easily. Natasha stepped back, startled that he entered despite knowing her identity. Kang told her he hadn't come to die. He summoned his barrage of swords, intending to steal her legendary skill. She dodged effortlessly, shouting she had anticipated that technique. Then she yelled for her subordinates to take him down. Bullets rained from all directions. Kang dodged everything in matrix-like movements and closed in on Natasha, but she flipped away, mocking him with a middle finger. He studied the gunfire and realized something strange. With his shadow mantle activated, he should have been invisible. So how were they targeting him? Noah arrived. Kang called for his help. The subordinates panicked. They could see the cat's shadow too. Kang reasoned it out. Their ability was a legendary illusion skill manipulating visual perception. A blade pressed against his neck. Natasha warned him not to move. She claimed she might spare him. Kang laughed, asking how she planned to kill him if the body she was threatening wasn't even real. She froze. 3 swords materialized at her throat. Kang explained he knew from the beginning it wasn't real shadow mantle, it was bait. But for his senses to be distorted, only one thing made sense: a legendary illusion ability. Natasha's blade dissolved as Kang crushed her with a gravitational skill. He stood over her, telling her it wasn't so easy to fool people. The system announced a player had been killed. But Kang noticed something. The sword had stopped before delivering the final blow. Multiple survivors appeared on the system radar. A massive drone descended, announcing that all survivors in Zone B16 must be eliminated. Robots arrived, chanting, "Eliminate." A massive mech declared a confidentiality protocol and fired a huge blast. Kang wondered if his shield could withstand it until a red beam cut through everything. A clock chimed and Natasha froze. A familiar figure appeared, the greedy little shop elf. He looked at Kang and blamed him for 2 people dying without spending their points. Then he scolded Natasha too, calling her a beggar and urging her to spend her remaining points before she died. Natasha, humiliated, clenched her fists. Kang laughed. When she shouted she would spend all 374,000 points on card packs, Kang watched in boredom. She opened pack after pack, all common cards. Stress nearly tore her apart while the elf cheered with manipulative enthusiasm. Nearly 1,000 packs later, she claimed the last one, nothing. She collapsed in despair. The elf offered a potion, saying she still had 4,000 points left. Kang joked with the elf, who then tempted him with golden card packs. Natasha, furious, screamed at Kang to buy one. He shrugged and bought a pack. It was a common ice bolt, but level up was available. He considered it, but Natasha grabbed him by the collar, screaming incoherently. Before anything else could happen, an explosion sounded. Megazord-like robots surrounded them with bazookas. Natasha looked away at the wrong moment. Kang called her name, she turned, and a sudden slash decapitated her. Kang charged the robots. One head gone, another. He unleashed explosions and freezing blasts until all machinery was destroyed. He joked about investing in the pharmaceutical company that owned the robots. Rewards appeared. Because he cleared the zombie tower, he could select one dead player to claim. He knew exactly which ability he wanted. Natasha revived, crawling like a defeated stray. Kang taunted her, asking whether she wanted to get arrested, then told her to call 911 or surrender herself. She stared, confused, asking if he was just letting her go. Kang confirmed. He needed her alive. Someone had to spread tales of how amazing he was. Mr. Park's voice exploded through the phone, calling Kang an idiot and demanding to know why he kept trying to save people who clearly wanted him dead. Kang answered calmly that he wasn't a violent killer. He simply preferred to handle things peacefully. Grinding his teeth, Park shouted back that it wasn't funny. What did Kang think all those lunatics were after? Obviously, they wanted to kill him. He kept lecturing, furious, asking why he had ever raised Kang like a son. Kang replied just as calmly that if it weren't for his skill, the internet cafe would have gone bankrupt long ago. With a sigh, Park said none of that mattered anymore and told him to just come back safely. Smiling, Kang thanked him for worrying and promised he'd return soon. The narration shifted, explaining that within the towers, players were called many things: player, visitor, apostle, and outside the towers, they were known as weapons, military assets, asymmetric biological resources, heroes. But in reality, players weren't heroes. They were war heroes, tools used by nations to eliminate threats, just like Natasha Ivanova. Kang began to wonder if that was truly all anyone wanted from him and whether real heroes even existed in the modern world anymore. At that moment, a man nearby whispered, surprised, asking if the figure walking past was the hero king. Kang quickly pulled up his hood, realizing he'd forgotten to hide his face. The man leaned toward his girlfriend, advising her not to point because Kang supposedly had a nasty personality. Like a loyal waifu, she defended Kang instantly, saying she had heard he was actually kind. He only behaved that way because reporters were annoying. As they walked away, she said he was still the #1 hero and they were alive because of him. Kang let out a faint smile, relieved. Time passed before a reporter began shouting for an interview. Kang complained he couldn't walk in peace anymore and immediately escaped by leaping into the nearest tower. He landed inside a level 5 tower named the Tower of Sword and Sorcery, muttering that he'd rather rest inside a tower than deal with the reporters outside. Nearby soldiers praised a saint for successfully summoning a hero. Kang tilted his head. Saint, he wondered. A blue-haired woman stepped forward with a warm smile, grateful that he had answered the call. She introduced herself as Saint Elysius Aristina, the 37th saint of the holy state of Sarastina. Kang flashed his usual shameless smile, likely already imagining the rewards she might offer. He shook her hand and told her it was a pleasure, and that he would lend her his sword and service as a hero. Cheerfully, he asked what she needed from him. She began explaining the history of the continent of Philia, but he immediately cut her off, guessing it was another story of angels and demons fighting. Her eyes lit up. That was exactly right. She launched enthusiastically into the lore: the Celestials, the demons, the war between light and darkness, the abyss, the arc they created to stop the invasion, and the weakening seal that now required reactivation. The speech dragged on until Kang stepped in, saving the moment by saying they should just go kill the demons and save the world. She flustered, insisting the story had only just begun, but Kang folded his arms, turned around, and started walking away. Panicking, she asked what he was doing. He grabbed her arm, telling her to get this over with already. Desperate, she explained he didn't even know where the ark was. Kang raised a brow. Did she? Embarrassed, she admitted she didn't. Before she could continue, a red portal opened and a demonic hand emerged. She froze completely as a skull-like demon stepped out. Soldiers rushed forward, shouting insults and attacking with blades and beams of light. Kang was surprised they weren't immediately wiped out. The demon mocked them, sticking out his tongue and declaring divine power useless against him. He began charging a powerful attack, and someone yelled for the troops to fall back. But the saint stepped forward, saying she wanted to help Kang. He raised a hand and told her he was fine, asking only that she stay safe. The demon lunged at her, but Kang blocked the strike. She nodded, already overwhelmed by emotion at his protection, clasped her hands, and prayed to her goddess. The ice surrounding the demon suddenly burst apart. She cried out for Kang, asking if he was hurt, while he covered his face, saying the demon had left a message before disappearing, that the demons would reclaim the ark and the world of light would soon be swallowed by darkness. He had warned Kang to stay away from their objective. The saint panicked, muttering that this was bad. Kang said there was no time to waste and asked if she knew where the ark was. She admitted she had no idea Armageddon was so close, but said there was a place they should go. Moments later, they were already riding horses at full speed. Kang looked over and remarked that she had been bored as well, complimenting her acting earlier. Nor appeared beside him with a smug meow. The entire demon encounter had been a setup, Kang's plan to scare the locals. He told Nor to avoid flashy powers so they wouldn't draw suspicion. The saint asked if she should slow down, but Kang reassured her everything was fine. With a grin, he added that he had to do things his own way if he wanted efficiency. That was how to use a legendary skill. Soon they reached the Adventurers Guild. Kang said he heard they needed an item to enter the labyrinth. The blonde receptionist confirmed they would need an adventurer's license and asked them to wait for their number. While waiting, the saint explained they were in the labyrinth city of Garcia, a neutral zone between Sarastina and the Drager Empire. The city had been built around an ancient underground labyrinth filled with opportunities. Kang chuckled, saying that if they hid the Ark here, something was definitely off. Their number was called, and the receptionist asked them to sign a document. The saint began signing without reading, but Kang stopped her, pointing out that the guild waived all responsibility for deaths and that all recovered bodies and belongings became property of the city. He had to agree to this just to get a license. The receptionist smiled nervously, explaining that adventurers accepted risks for great rewards. The saint agreed, while Kang muttered that the clauses made life feel very precious. They descended into the labyrinth. On the first floor, Kang drew his sword and asked if the saint was ready. She nodded. A swarm of giant rats charged at them. Kang blocked the first and told her to attack. She fired a beam of light and decapitated it. The very next moment, they were already on the 5th floor. Kang remarked they'd moved quickly thanks to her abilities. She blushed and said some adventurers also helped, which she appreciated because they were in a hurry. Kang thought they were simply angry that he was stealing their hunting zone. Bright and optimistic, she said that as long as people supported each other the way adventurers did, they would have nothing to fear from demons. Kang reassured her that he would get the ancient weapon. Suddenly, a bald, muscular man appeared, accusing them of entering the labyrinth without paying tolls. Kang explained these were labyrinth bandits. The man demanded everything they had. The saint begged for peaceful dialogue, but Kang sarcastically agreed and began retelling her earlier lore speech. The angels, the demons, the hero summoned from another world to find the Ark. The bandits stared blankly and the saint confirmed the story cheerfully. The bald man burst into laughter, mocking them. Kang expected that reaction. Slashing began immediately. Kang tore through the bandits. One lost his arms, screaming. Another attacked with an axe, but Kang blocked it with ease. A female voice snapped, demanding to know who was harming her men. The receptionist. The saint recognized her instantly, horrified. Kang explained the guild and bandits worked together to ambush adventurers and sell bodies if they couldn't pay. The blonde smirked, mocking the saint's naivety. She attacked, but Kang blocked with a grin. She turned to see Nor shredding her allies. A loud crunch echoed as Nor stood proudly. Kang said the path was clear. The saint stayed silent, shaken, and followed him. They reached a coliseum. Kang said they would rest there for the night. The saint still looked troubled. He asked if the world wasn't what she imagined. Looking down, she said people were still fighting over money even as the world ended. He remembered someone saying the world needed a war between heroes. He replied that every world was similar. She asked what his world looked like. Kang said his world had been on the brink of collapse many times. Without someone like her, things became dangerous. She apologized if it was sensitive, but he said it was fine. Everything went well until the 3rd time, then people began prioritizing their own interests. She asked if he was corrupted too. He told her to guess. She said something, the speech bubble was empty, and he laughed, saying it made no sense. Time passed. Something glowed. The supreme capitalist appeared with shiny cards. Kang grinned, saying it was exactly what he'd waited for. Days later, they were on the 100th floor facing a massive winged serpent demanding the Ark. Kang slashed it vertically, killing it. It begged forgiveness. Kang waved it off, exhausted, before the system rewarded him. A green light appeared the Ark. He picked it up, noting how simple it looked for an ancient relic. The system identified it as an Ark fragment. The labyrinth collapsed as a blue portal appeared. A voice echoed, the Empire's first prince, Millie Drager. He demanded the Ark, claiming it now belonged to the Empire. The saint insisted it could only be used to protect the world. The prince declared that with the Ark, demons would kneel before him. Kang attacked, calling it convenient that the quest item delivered itself. The prince roared and summoned his guards. The saint buffed Kang. He summoned 1,000 swords. A massacre followed. The prince shattered the arc fragment, releasing its power. A monstrous creature emerged, killing his own soldiers. Kang told the saint to buff him again. He equipped ice armor, drank potions, and faced the monster. After trading blows, he froze it and carved straight through its chest. The system rewarded him the second arc fragment. A green crystal descended. The saint whispered that it was the arc. Kang grabbed it. The system confirmed he'd reached level 50 and unlocked the Tower of Awakening. Smiling, he handed the arc to her. She hesitated, saying she didn't deserve it. He insisted she did and warned her that unqualified people misused power. She thanked him softly. He said it was a pleasure. The system concluded the tower had been cleared, and Saint Elijah now deeply trusted him. Time passed. Kang lay on his bed watching news of the tower he had cleared, thinking maybe he'd taken too long but had something more important now. Days later, he walked down the street when 10 reporters sprinted toward him. He immediately entered another tower, the Tower of Awakening. Inside, a voice called him the child of 1,000 faces and talents. Kang told it to drop the nonsense. Surrounded by mirrors reflecting endless laughing versions of himself, one reflection twisted, its eyes glowing red. All mirrors shattered as a figure stepped forward, a clown identical to Kang. They clashed. Every move Kang made, the clone copied perfectly. He muttered he had fought this thing every season and it still gave him chills. He fired shadow spikes, the clone blocked them. Blades came within inches of Kang's neck before he barely raised his shield. He countered with a slash, but the clone copied the movement instantly, producing the same attack at the same angle, creating a perfect stalemate. The mirror duel escalated. Step for step, swing for swing, the clone stayed beside him like a synchronized reflection. There was no opening, no flaw, no hesitation. The tower's illusions flickered in the broken shards scattered around them, thousands of reflections showing the duel from every angle, all of them identical. Kang narrowed his eyes. This fight wasn't about strength, it was about breaking the reflection itself. He shifted stances, the clone matched him. He changed tempo, the clone mirrored him. He shifted to shadow power, the clone's aura shifted identically. The two clashed in a storm of movement, blades carving arcs of light and shadow across the space. Every strike felt like he was battling his own instincts, his own rhythm, his own accumulated skill. No matter what he attempted, the clone met him perfectly. And still the clone pressed forward, still the duel remained locked in perfect symmetry. Kang gritted his teeth. A direct approach wouldn't work, he would have to break the pattern or be swallowed by his own reflection. Kang shouted for Nor, his beloved shadow cat, but nothing happened. He quickly realized he couldn't summon familiars inside this place. Backing away from the clown copy, he sighed. He had to try. The key to ending the fight was simple. He steadied his breathing, tightened his grip, lifted his sword, and rushed in. Blood splattered as both combatants struck simultaneously. The clown tilted his head and laughed, asking why he was being so serious. They could be heroes or villains, the clown said. On this stage, they could be anything. There was no reason to take things so heavily. Raising a hand, the evil double declared that there was nothing in this world worth taking too seriously. Both had blades through their chests, yet they still grabbed each other's heads. Purple light erupted around them. Kang glared coldly and asked how the clown liked that magic trick, then told him it was time to shut up. A detonation burst. One head exploded. Kang remained standing, holding the mask. He slowly placed the mask over his face, looked upward, and asked if things weren't done yet. The monarch of masks appeared, smiling, congratulating him and urging him to take his new face and new talent. The scene shifted to a hospital. Mr. Park sprinted down the hallway at full speed, bursting into Kang's room. Gasping, he looked ready to faint. Kang simply raised a hand, smirking, greeting him casually. Relieved, Mr. Park joked that he'd worried for nothing. Kang had actually returned empty-handed. Kang frowned, annoyed that he was barely recovering and Park already wanted to push him back into work. Park teased him again, reminding him he had tons of potions and healing skills. Kang insisted these wounds were serious. Park's tone softened immediately. He agreed Kang's monarch shouldn't be underestimated and the opponent he faced must have been brutal. Kang admitted it wasn't that bad, it could have been worse. He explained that the awakening test at level 50 changed depending on the monarch. His trial required defeating a clone of himself, and in exchange, he gained a copy of every skill card and attribute he had collected. Standing up, Kang declared he'd gotten what he needed. What's the job? Grinning, Mr. Park revealed the mission. They were hunting criminals, and this time there was a real villain. He played footage on his phone. a city in flames. Civilians running, a deranged man waving a conductor's baton shouted joyfully about the beautiful harmony of despair. Fire exploded in every direction. The monarch of flames rewarded him for his madness, calling him impressive. The man spread his arms, praising the monarch for understanding his artistic beauty. Then he noticed people approaching to capture him and escaped into a tower. A police officer reported that the maniac had entered a level 4 tower, one that allowed only 2 participants inside. Kang walked past the officers with his hands in his pockets, staring at the burning city. A player didn't have to be a hero, but a player who set the world on fire. Kang clenched his jaw. This time he was furious, dead serious. That lunatic was going to pay. He entered the tower. The interior resembled an arena filled with roaring crowds. The pyromaniac spotted him immediately, laughing until he recognized who it was. Kang drew his sword and calmly stated that yes, they had sent him. The pyromaniac lit up with excitement, inviting Kang to join him and appreciate his art. Kang cut him off coldly, calling him a pretentious circus clown and wondering how the world became filled with people like him. Enraged, the man demanded he witness his flames. A unique skill, infernal fire orchestra. Explosions erupted across the arena. Kang dashed through the fireballs effortlessly, mocking him, typical of a failed artist losing his temper over nothing. The pyro channeled power, creating a massive fiery prison around Kang. Believing he'd trapped him, he laughed triumphantly. But Kang shattered it immediately, bursting through the flames and hovering midair. He taunted the maniac, saying he'd need much more than that. Kang raised his sword to finish the fight, but was suddenly caught in another blazing spell. The pyro cackled, calling it his masterpiece, starring the hero King himself. Inside the inferno, Kang grinned. A heartbeat later, he was behind the maniac, swinging. But the pyro narrowly dodged, surprising Kang. The maniac grabbed his neck, demanding to know how Kang performed the trick. Their illusions weren't supposed to talk. Kang smirked and said he didn't have to explain anything to a failure. The system clarified the ability he used, Oculus, a power that manipulated vision for 3 seconds, making illusions physically real. Kang created multiple illusions of himself, telling the pyro not to worry. An audience would witness his final show. His voice grew stern. After everything that maniac had done, this performance would be his last. The insane conductor trembled, screaming that his art was an explosion. He detonated himself. Kang shielded himself from the blast, bewildered as the system congratulated him. He had cleared the tower, though he wasn't entirely sure how. Knowing players could die for real inside a tower, he desperately spammed the exit command. Outside, the failed artist burst from the tower, fleeing in terror. Kang knew it. He leapt after him, striking with a clean slash. Ice blades severed the man's limbs. Kang raised his sword for the final blow, but a glowing yellow shield appeared. A group approached and a stunning blonde stepped forward, telling him to stop. Kang narrowed his eyes. Those barriers could block internal attacks. She insisted she was trying to help. The culprit had been detained and would be handed to authorities. Annoyed, Kang turned as if agreeing to let it go. But as soon as she lowered her guard, he gathered power in his hand and attacked. Panicked, she threw up another barrier, but Kang didn't stop. Noah lunged and devoured the criminal completely, leaving everyone stunned. The system warned his provocation level had skyrocketed. Even the monarch of masks was impressed. His player outfit dissolved. Everyone around him raised their weapons at him. Kang stared back calmly, stating that the man had killed many innocent people, including children, and he had no reason to let him live. Black Hat players would destroy the world long before the towers did. If killing that man made him a monster too, then so be it. The blonde stepped closer, placed a hand on his shoulder, and softly told him he wasn't a monster. Meanwhile, Mr. Park nearly screamed through the phone. Kang wasn't supposed to handle things like that. A public execution was never the plan. Now the French authorities wanted him gone. Park arranged a flight for the next morning. Kang remained unbothered and said he had something personal to handle first. Park demanded to know what he was planning, but Kang hung up. The blonde had overheard. She thanked him for staying. Kang admitted he owed her one anyway, so he'd help. Trying to ease into the moment, he casually sat beside her on the bed, but she got up instantly, saying she'd see him tomorrow in Paris. Kang asked blankly if she needed anything else. She shook her head and left. Across the room, she wondered if asking for his help had been the right choice. The story jumped to Paris, inside the Revolutionary War Tower, a level 6 dungeon. Their objective: complete the story. Inside a speeding carriage, a chaotic chase unfolded. Kang shielded the vehicle with magic, blocking incoming arrows. He shouted to the blonde that a bridge was ahead, they would make their stand there. They leapt out, destroying the bridge behind them to protect the king and nobles. The rebels approached. One knight shouted for a ceasefire. Recognizing Kang, he accused him of siding with the corrupt kingdom despite originally appearing to protect the rebels. He begged Kang to return to the righteous side. Kang looked at the blonde, realizing she had been here before. She confessed she discovered this world inside a level 5 tower and believed in the French Revolution's ideals of liberty, equality, and solidarity. But now, those she thought righteous stood against her. Kang warned that if she wanted to switch sides, she'd better say so. She refused, saying they should treat this like any other tower and clear it. Kang agreed, there was no turning back. She smiled, glad to be in the tower with him. The rebel captain continued begging for Kang's loyalty, but Kang stabbed him in the stomach. He asked if they still looked like apostles. Then he warned them the bridge was gone. Leave now before dying for nothing. The rebels refused, shouting for freedom even if it meant fighting visitors. Their armor lit with magic, their formation tightened. Maria cast protective spells around Kang. She yelled for him to stay behind her, but Kang seized control of the battlefield. He extinguished every light source. Maria panicked, she couldn't fight in pure darkness. Kang nearly took a hit, these level 6 enemies could track him even in the dark. He shouted for her to raise her shield. She begged him to bring back the light, but he refused. He enjoyed the fight and experience points were shared anyway. He told her the battle was already finished. She looked disappointed but reached for his hand when he told her they needed to move. Their next target was the Fat King before someone else reached him first. They entered the burning city. The Iron Duke ordered his soldiers to kill everyone, elderly, children, anyone. Maria froze, horrified by the slaughter. Kang surveyed the ruins and said this was what happened when an ideology grew too powerful, probably the same in her world. The system warned that elite Iron Blood troops were approaching. Kang grinned. Since they weren't nobles, this would be easier. He snapped his fingers. Darkness fell. The slaughter was immediate. The tower cleared. The royalists won, but were soon overtaken by the Iron Blood Duke, whose brutal regime would collapse in time. Kang received his rewards, a random skill pack and a random artifact. Reporters swarmed Maria outside the tower, asking about her partnership with the hero king. She gave a diplomatic answer, but Kang jumped in loudly, joking they had a hot night together and entered the tower as a date. Maria exploded in embarrassment while Kang kept stirring things up. The system warned his provocation level had reached a record high. Monarchs laughed and rewarded him with skill packs. When news outlets claimed he and the blonde were in a secret romance, Kang laughed, too late to tell people otherwise. Even the blonde seemed amused. Time passed. Inside the tower of the deadly glacier, an army approached. Kang told Maria to strengthen her barrier. Still annoyed by his jokes, she teased that after their hot night, a cold one was fitting. For an entire month, they cleared tower after tower across France. At the airport preparing to part ways, Kang grinned, asking whether some countries didn't have a tradition of saying goodbye with a hug or a kiss. Maria crossed her arms, calling him irresponsible, but admitted it was reassuring to have him around. She thanked him for protecting that world. On the plane, Kang looked out the window, thinking the world would be better if everyone worked together. Maybe next time he'd invite the saint to Korea. Noor suddenly spoke. Kang had caused her enough trouble. Kang jumped in shock. Noor explained that after evolving, yes, he could talk. Kang demanded to know why he hadn't spoken earlier. Noor said he didn't want to interrupt while Kang was busy flirting with the blonde. He told Kang to stop wasting time and check his new card packs. Kang opened them, hoping for a legendary pull. His deck finally seemed cohesive. Stretching, he said they should test the new cards in a tower before going home. Back in the city, Kang approached a building as people whispered, recognizing him. He spotted a kid snoring at a table in his subway. Kang kicked the desk, waking him. The brat swore at him. Kang glared and gave him 3 seconds to stand. The kid smirked. He was the president's son. Kang didn't care. He grabbed the boy by the hair and dragged him outside, announcing loudly that the hero king was coming through. The kid panicked. Kang remembered asking the association to find someone he could mentor while testing his new deck. He regretted it instantly. The brat had no talent and probably couldn't clear a level 3 tower alone. Realizing who Kang was, the boy gaped, asking if the hero king would really help him reach level 4. Kang casually confirmed. Inside the butcher slaughterhouse tower, Kang kicked the newbie forward. The kid hit the floor in front of monsters and ran immediately. Kang asked why he wasn't fighting. The boy yelled that letting him die was a bad idea. Kang realized the kid's expensive armor was carrying him. The brat didn't know how to fight. Spoiled children never had a will of their own. These were supposed to be the future protectors of the world. While Kang pondered this, the kid got mauled. He screamed for help. Kang finally moved, unleashing shadow power to clear the area. Feeling proud, Kang declared that was how it was done. The brat cursed him, saying his father would retaliate. Kang smirked, giving the boy false hope. He said the mission was a valuable lesson. Relieved, the kid asked if that was his intention. Kang replied bluntly, of course not, he was useless. He activated his assassin card and cut the boy down. The kid collapsed. Kang told him to come back when he was strong enough for revenge. The brat failed the mission and they both returned to the street. Confused, he asked what happened. Kang told him calmly he had died. Furious, the brat warned him that his father and corporation would destroy him. Kang laughed and grabbed him by the neck, asking what that tiny company could do. National-level threats wanted him dead already. Before the argument could continue, they heard a click. The system activated. They had been selected for Labyrinth 999, heavily influenced by the Monarch of Masks. Kang, the brat, and others were teleported. They learned the rules. If killed by another player, you fail but revive after the labyrinth ends. If killed by the labyrinth, you cannot revive. Clear by either defeating the Green King or being the last group standing. 5 groups compete, equal in strength. If 3 members of a group are eliminated, the group is out. Rules remain until the labyrinth is complete. Players panicked at the situation. Kang muttered that the labyrinth wouldn't kill him, the newbies would. He asked everyone's levels as they entered the hunter's jungle labyrinth. Monsters attacked immediately. Kang shielded everyone and wiped them out. His team was weak, meaning enemy groups were probably around level 40. He knew they'd be targeted. He told Noah to protect everyone. Their guests had arrived. Team C charged. Kang already had a plan. He went straight for 3 kills, knowing eliminating most of a group disqualified them. A spy spotted him, recognized the Hero King, and fled to warn his team, but ended up leading Noah straight to them. Noah shredded them. Enemy groups fell one after another until the system declared the labyrinth cleared. The group celebrated, but a new message appeared. Only 2 blessing tickets were awarded. They needed to choose who received them. Kang said he should take both since he did everything. The spoiled kid argued he deserved one as forgiveness. A level -20 player said he helped fight and deserved one. Arguments escalated. The 2 newbies tried calming things down, but Kang had enough. He ended the argument instantly. Those 2 should be satisfied with the points earned, he said. Anyone else want to complain? Silence. Kang took all rewards for himself. He opened 2 cards, both B rank. Nor teased him for his awful luck. The system offered to combine his flame resilience into fire inhibitor, which he accepted. He explained blessings were always worth getting. They persisted across seasons. Petting Nor, he wondered aloud if he should look for a fire aspect tower. Nor refused. Too hot. He preferred dark and cold places. Kang found him picky but cute. Suddenly, the system called him. The Tower of the Holy War summoned player Yusong Kang. His pendant glowed. The symbol of trust carried great influence. The tower was level 7. Would he answer? Smiling, Kang stepped forward. Upon arrival, someone thanked the gods of shadows for hearing their prayers. A regal elf queen appeared, tall, elegant, commanding, thanking him for answering as well. It was her, the same arrogant princess from before, the one he saved. The one who gave him the necklace. She had planned this all along. Kang stood and remarked that she was the princess from before. He moved to approach, but 2 spears crossed in front of him. He stood before the Supreme Queen. She stepped forward and declared she owed him an immeasurable debt, and he had once again answered her call. Kang smiled, noting she had become famous since they last met, likely crowned queen after clearing the Pale Desert Tower. He stepped closer to the queen and with calm formality asked how he could serve her majesty. But inside, he couldn't help questioning why she had summoned him again after safely returning home and ascending to the throne. Before he could dwell on it, the story cut away. A soldier knelt before a priest, breathlessly delivering urgent news. Shocked, the priest cried out that the holy city had fallen to the ruler of the Odd Kingdom. In despair, he prayed to the god of light. A narration followed. After Pope Urban's death, Pope Gregory sought to reclaim the holy city. To do so, he summoned every human king across the continent: Richard the Dragon Heart King, Barbarossa the Crimson-Bearded, and High King Philip II. Thus began the Third Holy War, a brutal struggle between desert elves and humanity for control of the Holy City. Kang listened to this, nodding slowly, thinking he understood, though to him it was basically just a clash of faith. He wondered why they couldn't simply tolerate each other when, in his eyes, they were all heretics anyway. The princess declared that the three kings were already marching their armies into war, likely heading toward the fortress since it was the closest to the Holy City. Striking a confident pose, she asked Kang if he would fight for them. Kang glanced across the horizon, putting a hand to his forehead. He asked if the approaching force belonged to the Dragon Heart King. The dark-haired elf beside him looked stunned that he could see that far. Preparing for battle, Kang pulled out his cards, swapping Oculus for Icebolt. A massive ice sniper rifle manifested in his hands. He leveled the weapon toward the distant enemy lines and told Her Majesty to leave things to him. The system chimed. Icebolt upgraded to 3 stars, effective range and damage drastically increased. Firearm manifestation enabled. He perched on a high boulder like a seasoned marksman. Kang steadied his aim. One clean shot and the bullet of ice obliterated its target. Below, someone shouted that it was the visitor from yesterday. The commander ordered shields raised, forming a tight wall that blocked further shots like Viking warriors. Kang noted that the shields had been blessed by the Monarch of Flames. That monarch had been meddling ever since Kang began receiving gifts from the Monarch of Frost. The commander ordered Squad 2 to locate the visitor. Kang leapt from his perch, charging straight at them with a grin. It was time to settle things. Arrows rained down from the Queen's elven archers as they supported him. Soldiers panicked, asking whether they should regroup, but the commander refused. He insisted their god's shield would block any heretic arrow. Right as he spoke, an arrow punched through his shield and into his skull. The princess smiled. Everything was happening just as Kang had predicted, meaning the enemy's main force would appear any moment. A soldier shouted in horror, asking why the apostle was fighting for heretics. But prayers turned to screams as Nor tore across the battlefield. The shadow cat summoned the colossal whale once again, smashing enemy lines under its immense weight. Even Nor looked surprised when something sliced through his shadows. A soldier stepped forward wielding a glowing red sword, telling his men not to lose courage before the god of light, Richard the Dragon Heart King himself. He charged directly toward the elven queen, but a massive shadow rose behind him. For a moment, it looked like he was swallowed whole until his crimson blade tore Nor's darkness apart. Raising his sword, he shouted as the god of light commanded him. He slammed the blade into the ground, yelling, "Avance!" His soldiers roared, "Amen!" Kang stared blankly, muttering that this looked very bad. He began channeling his ice blades until a volley of arrows rained down from the elven side. Archers yelled for Kang to stay focused. More elves barreled in with fanatical grins, shouting that they would dry out the heretics in the Queen's name. Kang thought the same thing he had thought since arriving. These people were absolutely insane. Battle erupted in total chaos. Light clashed with shadow, but the elves overwhelmed the kingdom's soldiers, cutting them down relentlessly. The Dragonheart King watched his army crumble, enraged, and cut down one of the elves. Kang met the king's gaze, drew his blades, and smirked. Now things were getting interesting. He rushed in, unleashing his signature wave of slashes, but the king blocked all of them simply by raising his sword. He charged Kang immediately, demanding whether Kang had any idea who he was facing. Kang dodged with ease and remarked that the king was the enemy about to give him a huge reward. He grabbed the king's head, marking him with the seal of death, then challenged whether the king truly had the heart of a dragon. But something flashed across his interface, a debuff. Weakness to target. Accuracy reduced by 50%. Dexterity and evasion reduced by 50%. He tried to retreat, but the king roared that no heretic would triumph over him and violently impaled his own horse, sacrificing it. A massive surge of power burst outward. Kang shielded himself, baffled. Even with the debuff, the king fought with terrifying strength. The king began chanting. He offered blood in his lord's name. He begged for the power to wipe out heretics. Then he charged straight at Kang. Kang swapped Icebolt for telekinetic blades. The king swung a fiery red slash, but Kang parried and answered with a barrage of flying swords clashing with the crimson blade. Dark red tendrils, blood-soaked hands burst from the ground. The king's body twisted, veins bulging monstrously. Kang cocked his head, thinking the surge of power came from blood density. He dropped his sword and spread his arms, deciding this was the perfect chance to test something. He activated a new ability. A massive magic circle expanded around him. Kang lifted one finger and commanded, "Rise." Dead soldiers across the battlefield rose again. Sun Jinwoo 2 from Walmart had arrived. The Dragon Heart King demanded to know whether Kang believed abominations could stop him, but froze when he heard cracking. The undead corpses began to reshape, forming jagged spikes erupting from their bodies. They hurled themselves at him. One landed a hit. The king fell to his knees. The undead faded as the system warned Kang his proficiency was too low, but the job was done. The king knelt, defeated. Kang stepped forward and added another kill to his list. The view shifted back to the Elven Queen's palace. Kang opened a chest and presented her with the Dragon Heart King's severed head. She thanked him but reminded him that they had only defeated one of the 3 heretic kings. This war had only just begun. Kang understood. He stared out the window that night, clearly unenthusiastic about her words, and decided to sleep. But then green portals opened behind him. The supreme capitalist elf appeared, grinning. He congratulated Kang for maxing out Ice Blade materialization and offered the advancement stone if he upgraded the shop. Kang smiled faintly. He had been expecting this. He spent 3 million points, upgraded the shop, bought the advancement stone, and fused it with Ice Blade, unlocking Ice Artificer, allowing him to use any Ice Aspect skill card even if it wasn't equipped. He looked up and said the weather was about to change. Summoning countless ice blades, he tore through everything around him, remarking that it was a good day for his enemies to meet their maker. Soldiers barely had time to react before being erased in a single frame. Kang continued forward, saying their leader had no intention of appearing, so he would hunt him down personally. A flashback revealed the queen explaining that Redbeard Barbarossa had moved his camp overnight with only a few soldiers. Kang complimented her intel team, but she admitted human informants were responsible. The 3 kings held deep grudges, still fighting each other in secret. This opportunity couldn't be ignored. Redbeard's army was the strongest, so she gave Kang her elite units and requested he take on the mission. Now, standing before the tent, Kang remembered he was prepared to kill the target and escape if things went wrong. The intel seemed accurate, but the king wasn't there until Kang threw open the tent flap and swept ice across the ground. He found him. The man collapsed and dropped his goblet of wine. Kang eyed the cup, wondering if it was poisoned. He laughed hysterically as a soldier entered, reporting that everything was secure, then froze upon seeing the corpse. It hit Kang. In the real world, ever since the first season began, nations had been assassinating foreign players. They prioritized national interest above all else. He stomped on the poisoned glass in fury, calling it ridiculous. The queen began sweating, horrified, been poisoned by his own people. Kang realized the intel wasn't a trap. They simply wanted to ensure Redbeard died. She asked desperately who would betray their own with a war approaching. Kang replied that this was exactly why they did it. They took the glory while weakening 2 rival kingdoms. She said they now had to worry about the Grand King's army. Kang pointed out that survivors from the other 2 armies would now join the Grand King anyway. A soldier burst into King Philip's tent, breathlessly reporting that heretics attacked and annihilated Redbeard's forces. Philip smiled, eager to blame the elves. He declared that Redbeard's troops were now his. His commanders praised him, saying he would restore the sanctity of the holy city. Philip raised his hand, declaring he was guided by heavenly messages. He proposed sending the former armies of Redbeard and the Dragon Heart King into the front lines. Back at the battlefield, Kang surveyed the merged army, Dragon Heart King's troops, Redbeard's armored soldiers, and a new force under the same banner. They were using the fallen king's soldiers as human shields, classic tactics. Kang sighed. He'd read the same war cries in actual history books, as if killing enemies ever brought peace. He turned, pulled out a card, and summoned Zephyr's Western Wing. The buff activated. He launched into the sky and rained ice magic on the front lines. Soldiers spotted him, shouting for vengeance for their kings. Philip raised his sword, unleashing a massive wave of fire that canceled all the ice attacks. Soldiers cheered that the gods were with them. On the elven side, archers declared the god of shadows blessed them as well. System messages appeared, councils joining the war, Shadow Council, Frost Council, and more. Kang narrowed his eyes. What did these gods gain from all this? Battles exploded along every line. Kang grew furious, calling them all evil. Nor appeared and told him to stop complaining and do his job. Kang cracked his neck and agreed he'd end this right now because he was tired of watching this nonsense. The Shadow Council sent a message, "Do not disappoint us." They granted him 100 shadow puppets. He landed atop one and grinned, generous. Then he noticed something, angels. Rank 9 angels had returned. He ordered the puppets to handle the angels while he focused on one man, King Philip, who descended from above and swung a vertical slash at him. Kang dodged, Philip laughed, Kang froze, that cape, he recognized it. Philip was a player too. Philip smirked, calling Kang a heretic bastard, and charged. Kang taunted him for being a villain despite claiming to serve the light. Their swords clashed repeatedly mid-air. Philip broke away, and Kang complained this game was unfair. Everyone had wings but him. Immediately, the Shadow Monarch buffed him with wings of his own. He stared in disbelief at the outdated game-looking wings, then grinned. If the fight went aerial, his deck would be almost useless, but he'd make it work. Philip smirked, calling him a worthy opponent. They clashed mid-air. Philip declared Kang was struggling, the price of defying the god of light. Kang scoffed and asked if poisoning Redbeard was part of that divine plan while launching telekinetic blades. Philip anticipated the attack and repelled them, proudly stating the poisoning was indeed God's will. He charged with the blessing of Seraph. He swung and sliced through nothing but an ice clone. Kang stuck out his tongue mockingly as Philip froze in shock. Kang appeared behind him and struck, a finishing slash burying into the king's chest. He commented that wings drastically narrowed field of vision, but the king's blade glowed. The system warned that an archangel of rank 8 had descended onto the king's body. Kang flew back at full speed as Philip's body exploded in radiant light. The king healed instantly, transformed, halo blazing, standing like a final boss. Kang thought demons weren't the only ones capable of possessing bodies, angels could too. Their weapons gained new attributes as they charged again. Thunder echoed with each clash, rain poured as flashes lit the sky. Kang fought relentlessly, but sweat dripped down his face as the angel sliced off one of his shadow wings. The angel dove in, aiming for Kang's chest, but the severed wing sprouted spikes, stabbing the angel. Kang's ice blades shot forward, impaling the angel repeatedly. He checked the angel's neck to confirm the kill as the half-frozen figure attempted to speak, but the system interrupted. Boss defeated. Great King Angel. Kang muttered that he didn't need wings to fight in the sky. He hurled the remaining wing like a spear at the falling angel. Soldiers below screamed, seeing something falling, the angel's corpse, riddled with blades, crashing down. The system announced the course of history had changed. His equipment shifted, granting a corrupted special item and 100 points. Kang exhaled, finally done. A flash later, he exited the tower. A global announcement declared he was the first player to clear a level 7 tower. 1,000 reporters waited. Kang tried to cover his face, bewildered at ending up right outside his own house again. One reporter yelled that they noticed the cross on his coat was gone, asking if he had switched equipment inside the tower. Kang shrugged. Probably. He was bombarded with questions as Mr. Park arrived late, complaining to his driver. A woman told him to relax, saying he'd been trying too hard to protect Kang. Park argued he was just trying to keep the kid from doing something reckless, but Kang grabbed the microphone. He asked the reporters if they wanted to hear him say it again. He was sick of this. Sometimes he wondered why he even bothered saving the world. It didn't seem worth it anymore. With a cold smile, he asked, "Do you like wars?" Reporters stared at him, confused. He went on, "Wars where molten iron drips down castle walls, arrows fly everywhere, guts spill across the ground. Wars of the 21st century, missiles falling from the sky, bullets tearing people apart, children blown up by fighter jets. In every age, guts were scattered somewhere." So he asked again, "Do you like war?" Terrified murmurs spread. No one liked war, they insisted. He laughed softly, saying wars were awful whether you won or lost. He remembered his talk with the elf queen. After defeating everyone, she confessed she was consumed by fear. He had asked what she could possibly fear. She wondered whether their goddess really wanted all this bloodshed. Returning to the reporters, he said he now understood their answers. Ordinary people had no reason to like war. Then he asked, "Do you like heroes?" A blonde reporter hesitated, then said yes. Kang tilted his head. Why were heroes called heroes? Because their outstanding performance on the battlefield made them heroes. Heroes were byproducts of war, so how could people like heroes but hate war? He accused them of lying. They liked war more than they admitted. Reporters were stunned. One tried to object, saying his perspective was an outdated worldview irrelevant to modern society. Kang mocked him, saying outdated was funny coming from people whose northern neighbors and far western neighbors tried to assassinate him every season. Espionage was just another form of war. The blonde reporter gasped and asked whether foreign nations had sent assassins after him. Kang covered his mouth dramatically. Apparently that was classified. Oops, he just couldn't shut up. Another reporter asked him to clarify which northern neighbors he meant. Kang refused to elaborate as a line of black cars arrived. Still calm, he continued speaking. He realized world leaders were too busy fighting one another, even when their world could end tomorrow. They saw players as weapons, using them in national conflicts. They asked Kang to fight their enemies instead of the world's real ones. So he asked, why should I even bother saving this world? Everyone froze. Mr. Park froze. The blonde reporter froze. His phone picked up his words as he restated the question. Does the world even deserve to be saved? Silence filled the air. Finally, one reporter dared to answer, yes, the world deserved to be saved. Kang asked why. A man from the crowd shouted back, because innocent people must not die, because Kang, as the hero king, shouldn't abandon his duty. He was supposed to be an example. Kang sighed long and deeply. A warped, twisted voice echoed through Kang's mind. Why so serious? The clownish tone taunted him, reminding him that on this stage he could become a hero or a villain, whatever he wished to be. Kang felt himself nearing a breaking point, but he forced a crooked smile and replied darkly that he had only been kidding. Nobody needed to take what he said so seriously. Mr. Park realized what was happening. He shouted Kang's name, grabbed him by the arm, and pushed through the crowd while flashing his badge. As reporters tried to stop them, Kang turned toward the cameras. He told everyone watching to stop bothering him about duty or convictions. Nobody wanted to see what would happen if an idiot like him ever began taking those convictions seriously. Pointing to a reporter, he ordered the moment to be aired on TV. Someone tried to call after him to make him wait, but Mr. Park dragged him out at full speed. Right after the speech, a system message appeared. The monarch of jesters was absolutely delighted. The monarch of war was impressed. A reward was granted, class blessing. Mr. Park sighed, said he'd go downstairs to handle a few things, and asked Kang to take care of the rest. Before Kang could reply, multiple system windows popped up. The monarch of parallel worlds laughed maniacally and granted him the tracking talisman effect. Using keyword X9, he could analyze an opponent's weaknesses and increase his critical strike chance. The talisman whispered constantly, but Kang simply closed his eyes and ignored it. The scene shifted to a news broadcast. The hero king has become the target of terrorist attacks carried out by foreign nations. Public outrage against the government continues to rise. Park appeared holding a beer bottle, asking why Kang was even watching that and whether he realized he might have gone too far this time. Kang asked if Park was mad at him. Park shook his head, ruffled Kang's hair, and said he couldn't get angry. No one understood Kang's burden the way he did. Kang exhaled, relieved, and joked that the French saint understood too. Park instantly rejected the idea, calling her crazy and nowhere near him in importance. Kang laughed and thanked him for always being around. Park said nothing, sipping his beer. Curious, Kang asked what Park's class was. Park replied, Pureblood Assassin. Kang asked if he'd completed his awakening and what he'd gotten. Park grinned, releasing a deadly aura as he revealed a legendary dagger, the Heartbreaker. Embarrassed, Kang admitted he'd also managed to corrupt a legendary item himself. Park warned him to slow down. Throwing his life into danger repeatedly would eventually get him killed. Then the old man smirked and suggested they hit a perfect level 7 tower together. They arrived at the Tower of Godfather and Underworld. Park told him to prepare. The path ahead was filled with betrayals, conflict, and filth. Kang raised a hand and muttered that it felt like they'd stepped into a noir movie. Rain fell in a narrow alley. A blonde man told someone they had until summer and handed over a small object for the peace of their time. He opened a broken watch, lamenting its damage because it was a gift from his godfather. Kang complained about the rain, telling Park to raise his hood so he wouldn't ruin his hair straightener. The blonde noticed them and ran toward them, calling for help and addressing them as strangers. Kang and Park exchanged glances, wondering if visitor in this world was replaced with stranger. The blonde explained that this was Black York and her family was in danger. Kang said danger was their specialty. He glanced at the huge orbs she carried and realized he'd assumed she was a boy until now. She ushered them inside, saying she would take them to her boss. Inside, she explained the city was controlled by 5 underworld families: Capone, Falcone, Gambino, Sanchez, and Kyo. A meeting was set in 3 days to decide ownership of major businesses. But her godfather, head of the Capone family, had been killed along with several executives. Kang asked about the godfather. She told him she had been an orphan until her ability surfaced, but it wasn't useful. Her godfather adopted her and her life improved. He had been her savior. Kang nodded while Park poked around curiously. She continued, during the attack she managed to save only her savior's son, who was now head of the family. A man with a cigar welcomed them, introducing himself as the president of Capone Enterprises, the boss of the Capone family. Mr. Park blurted out that the kid was the boss. A blonde boy stepped forward, snapping at Park and declaring himself Vito Capone, legitimate heir and head of the Capone family. The woman told Park to calm down, adding that foreigners were bad at judging character. Vito radiated charisma. Park was left flustered. The boy covered his mouth dramatically and told Rebecca to continue. Rebecca explained they wanted to restore the Capone family's glory. They needed to acquire as many businesses as possible at the upcoming meeting and eliminate the ones who killed the former boss and executives, as well as the mastermind behind it all. Kang asked if they suspected anyone. Rebecca said any of the 4 other family heads or all of them together, though Gambino was the prime suspect. Kang studied the photos and asked if he could kill them all. Rebecca said that would be fine. Any enemy of the family was marked for elimination anyway. Kang glanced at Vito, saying the boy didn't seem to agree. The kid nearly had a heart attack before insisting that the Capones reached their peak under his father, and Rebecca saw how he accomplished it. Anything she said reflected the Capone way. He never disagreed with her. Kang replied that Vito was the boss, not Rebecca. Panicking, the boy muttered that she knew more than he did. Kang cut him off, concluding the boy also wanted to kill them all. Vito, rubbing his head, said he'd rather keep things steady until they were certain, like his father did. He looked at Rebecca for validation and she smiled, calling him adorable. Mr. Park stretched and commented that infighting between 5 crime families was a strange thing. Kang decided they'd strike the Kyo family first since they were closest. Resting his chin on his hand, he teased Park for sounding like a cliché villain. Park replied that no better time existed to act like one, the world was just a game. Moments later, the 2 of them stormed into a building. Guards demanded to know who they were. Blood splattered almost immediately. Park announced anyone wanting to surrender should speak now. A guard shouted profanity and refused. Park tore through them, looking like he was actually enjoying himself. Kang muttered in admiration that the old man really was having fun. Then a man burst out of a door, yelling that they were cowards for attacking right before the meeting. It was Kyo himself. Park grabbed a soldier by the collar and asked Kang if the guy could fly, then threw him straight at Kyo and invited Kang to join the fun. Kang smirked and agreed. Park reminded him he was supposed to be relaxing. Kang looked confused but chuckled, firing ice crystals to clear a path. As Park charged Kyo, Kang dispatched the extras. Suddenly, a shoe appeared outside, clearly a woman's. But instead of a waifu, it was a mysterious woman hovering outside the house, observing Park's slaughter. Both Kang and Park noticed. Kang wondered aloud if she was crow-related, sensing something deeper behind this world. She flew off. The chapter ended. The next target was the Gambino family. Watching the chaos, Kang muttered that Park was tearing everything apart. He wondered what the old man was doing here, unable to recall the last time he saw Park fight seriously. Meanwhile, Noir's the shadow whales devoured everything. Kang muttered he didn't want Park seeing that power. Grinning at Noir, he ordered him to eat every last one of them. Noir burped, calling Kang lazy. Kang shrugged, he was off duty. Later, at a diner, Park asked Kang how he wasn't sick of cheeseburgers after eating them every meal. Kang replied through mouthfuls that they were amazing. Park hinted there might be something even better. Kang playfully said nothing was worse than a bad restaurant during a holiday. He then asked what Gambino had revealed. Park's expression hardened. Gambino knew nothing. Kang teased him for promising to handle everything. Park insisted Gambino wouldn't cause trouble at the meeting. He guaranteed it. He could be trusted. Meanwhile, Gambino, coughing blood, cursed the Sanchez and Falcone families for dragging him into this mess. Nobody was returning his calls. Park told him he had 72 hours before blood flow would stop and his heart would explode unless Park released his pressure points. Gambino immediately agreed to avoid joining the bidding war and supported investigating the mastermind. Park pointed at his temple, satisfied, and left. Gambino crushed his cigar in fury. Back at the diner, Kang chewed on ice. Park scolded him for ruining his teeth. They'd learn more at the meeting. Park suspected even more groups were involved beyond the 5 families. Crows circled overhead, still watching. The Capone family arrived at the summit. Vito and Gambino sat at a table. The mummy-like man, Marcellus Keogh, leader of the Keogh family, complained they were late. Gambino replied they were 2 men down. Vito trembled, insisting Sanchez and Falcone murdered his father. Rebecca urged caution and asked him to wait. He trusted her completely. Rebecca's demeanor felt off. A thug burst into the room, delivering news. Both the Sanchez and Falcone families had been wiped out. Vito concluded another enemy was involved. Park agreed, he had suspected as much. The 5 families were too weak. Kang, finishing another burger, was disappointed. He'd hoped he had grown stronger. A click echoed. A light flickered on. The Crow Woman appeared on stage. She condemned them as vile pests who profane the city, conspiring with corrupt politicians, exploiting the poor, extorting and blackmailing everyone. She declared she had exposed their sins and that she, Necro, would bring justice. Vito shouted, asking if she killed Sanchez and Falcone. Necro stomped the ground and declared that yes, those worms deserved to die just like his father. She hurled razor-sharp feathers at Vito. Rebecca stepped in front of him and shouted for him to get back. Nightcrow, stunned, realized Rebecca had blocked the attack. Then memories surfaced. Mr. Capone's death and Vito claiming Rebecca was the killer. Necro hissed that she had heard the same. With a twisted smile, she vowed vengeance. Kang leapt into the fight, muttering that too many people in the world deserved to die. Noir devoured everything in one strike. Kang patted him and said that was the real enemy, but he spoke too soon. Necro dodged in the next chapter and slashed through Noir's shadow. Noir yelped in pain. Kang realized she was stronger than expected. He lunged, grabbed her cloak, pointed a finger gun, and said bang. The death mark triggered, dropping her dexterity and evasion by 1,000 points. He switched skills and summoned X9 Mag, producing a status window that revealed her abilities. The Birdwoman shrieked. She launched feathers as sharp as blades and hid bombs inside them. Explosive crows swarmed. Mr. Park dodged frantically, shouting that he specialized in one-on-one combat and that Kang was making him take the hard job. Kang mocked him, saying Park claimed the bosses were his and needed to protect them. Kang insisted Park was far better at protecting people. Park shouted he was a pure-blood assassin, not a bodyguard. Kang grinned, claiming killing people was his specialty. Necro blocked his strike and screamed that he should be protecting the world, not siding with evil. Kang replied he didn't want to save the world, he wanted rewards. Necro spread her arms, pleading. She insisted the Capones were rotten to the core, massacring her family. The courts were too afraid to act, and that was why her group took justice into their own hands. She begged Kang to join them for peace. Blood spurted. Necro was impaled by Noir's spikes. Kang scratched his ear, muttering that she talked too much. He walked over, ripped off her mask, and was shocked to see a kid. The boy clutched something inside his coat, shouting not to underestimate justice. Click! Kang blinked, confused, asking what the boy had just done. A massive explosion erupted on the upper floors. Through the flames, Necro grinned, saying she had planted explosives there days ago. The blast intensified. Kang was speechless, but Park rushed in. Kang summoned Noir, and together they escaped as the entire building exploded. When the dust settled, Rebecca thanked them for not abandoning the fight. Most of the businesses were now under Capone control. Kang smiled, the young boss survived and the family emerged victorious. His job was done, but then he fixed her with a serious expression. 8 blades formed around her neck. He asked if all of this had been her plan. Rebecca asked what that had to do with him. Kang replied that he'd been hired to eliminate every enemy of the Capone family, and that included her. She had betrayed them, killed Capone's executives, and ordered him to murder the other family bosses. Rebecca asked for proof. Kang held up a feather. He'd heard everything straight from the hero. She had sold out the Capones. She wanted to wipe out rivals and place a child as a puppet ruler. That made her an enemy too. Rebecca smiled, saying she'd never do that. Everything she did was for Master Vito. He was too kind, too naive. So she killed his father, who forced the succession on him and removed every external threat. As his guardian, she had done what needed to be done. Kang replied that she'd stabbed the man who raised her in the back to control the city using a child. Mr. Park stepped forward. She wasn't a guardian, she had made the boy helpless to profit from him. Rebecca taunted them, they had no proof. Park opened a door. A boy stood there, crying. Rebecca froze, he had heard everything. She tried to explain, but something dark stirred within her. Vito clenched his fist, pulled out a Glock, and said she was right about one thing: the world was cruel. Bang! A system message appeared. Tower cleared. All enemies of the Capone family had been eliminated. Park walked away, saying he wished he could have been the protagonist of a noir film. Kang teased him, he'd never be a protagonist, and this wasn't even noir but a superhero flick. Park laughed and said they should do this more often. Suddenly, an underling rushed in with a problem. A level 5 tower in Sue was on the verge of a break. Both froze. Kang even began sweating. The next chapter explained that the tower had been challenged by association players. They failed their first attempt but escaped. One yelled that failing cost each member 3 points, they'd all been demoted. Another argued they could fix it by clearing the tower on hard mode. The others stared at him as if he'd lost his mind. Their mushroom-headed leader yelled that they'd worked hard to gain their rank. Did he want to be back under the association's leash? The others muttered no. They entered the tower again on hard mode. Result: total annihilation. Kang said he'd heard the association's point system was strict, but this was insanity. He thought about the tower break. It was rare now, but common during the first 2 seasons. Back then, failure was normal and consequences brutal. Thousands died, including loved ones, but now things were different. He opened his stash of unused equipment and skill cards. 3 items appeared, 1 legendary, 2 rare: the storyteller's tracking talisman, the bracelet of the wind, and the ring of power. Among the cards, 2 were legendary: an overcoat reducing defense but massively boosting evasion and dexterity, and the shadow mantle, spreading darkness. He fully geared up for the tower break, swapping bracelets and adjusting abilities. The system announced the tower break would begin. Kang stepped out of the car looking like a total Chad. The crowd screamed as the hero king arrived. He wasn't happy. He stared at the sky, sensing something wrong. As people cheered ignorantly, something emerged from the portal. A crimson flash lit the sky. The countdown began. People yelled for alertness. Kang placed a hand on a hero's shoulder and warned them. If they got caught in his skills, they would die. If they couldn't keep up, they would die. In fact, everyone except him would die. The tower break began. Monsters poured out. Kang unleashed full shadow power. Other heroes fled instantly. Creatures swarmed: orcs, lizard creatures, bizarre shapes. Kang realized these monsters weren't even from this tower. Something was terribly wrong. Then a reporter in a helicopter shouted, "Take a look at this, folks!" The hero king stood alone on the battlefield, holding back an entire level 5 tower break on hard mode. Even with critics constantly questioning him, his overwhelming skill left no room for doubt. Above him, a reporter hovered recklessly in a helicopter, narrating the chaos as if his own safety meant nothing. Kang glanced up, thinking the guy must either be fearless or utterly insane. Someone ought to give that man a trophy. Then the sky split with streaks of red lightning. The system boomed, "Entertain me more." The monarch of the abyss was summoning a deeper darkness into the world. The reporter kept broadcasting, explaining that the portal had changed color. A clear sign an abyssal monster was emerging. Meanwhile, Kang kept tearing through monsters, muttering that the reporter was way too committed to his job. He warned him to leave before he threw him into the swarm. Without another word, Kang rushed straight toward the abyssal creature forming inside the portal. The system identified it: abyssal slime. Kang smirked and fired all his blades at the creature. They struck, but the mass absorbed the attacks without stopping. Realizing simple slashes wouldn't be enough, he leapt forward with Nor at his side. Raising his hand, he declared that to kill something like this, he needed something big. Massive ice spikes shot up around him. Then he activated the Charlotte's Web skill card. Anyone could guess what was coming. A colossal web exploded outward, threads slicing cleanly through the slime as it wrapped around the monstrosity. The abyssal creature was shredded into perfect cubes. Nor practically danced with joy as he devoured the scattered chunks one after another. The system chimed: abyssal slime defeated. Tower break stopped. The monarch of the abyss expressed pleasure at the spectacle and granted him the abyssal jewel, and right on cue, the familiar sound of chaos returned. Reporters, thousands of them. A swarm of 5,000 journalists surged toward him, shouting that the hero king had stopped the entire tower break single-handedly. Microphones, cameras, shouts, they smothered the scene all at once. News about Kang stopping the tower break spread everywhere. Every station, every broadcast, every online feed replayed the footage. People criticized the player association relentlessly, calling it useless, asking what else they should have expected from that organization. Reporters explained the association players had failed their first attempt, feared the penalties, and rushed into the tower again on hard mode just to regain their points. That desperate choice led directly to the disaster. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to receive the continuation of the amazing story of this manhwa.